if we look at creativity in a way is also the artist. And I remember a phrase someone once used to describe a person, that he is a frustrated artist. Why? Because all of us are taught, as we discussed, that we have to compete, compare, and therefore conform. So we all are wired in our thinking to conform. Now, important about creativity is that it's non-conformity, that we have to be different, unusual, some would argue eccentric. We are not wired by society to behave that way, because then we cannot label and define you. In fact, you are being dangerous to the status quo. And you can understand, because society, in a way, if you look back historically, you had to be part of a tribe. And as being part of the tribe, if you fitted in, if you conformed, it kept everyone safe. But if you went out in the middle of the night saying, I don't want to care of the tribe and I want to be different and hang out, the harsh reality is another tribe might spot you, realize, come after you, and thereby recognize where your tribe was. But this day and age, physically, we are far more safer, well, compared to thousands of years ago. We don't have to worry about animals maybe catching us in the middle of the night or something to that extent. We're actually very comfortable. Okay, we live in an age where you can access information easily. You can get food delivered to your doorstep rather than foraging in the forests. So all these things have completely made us safe and preserved. So what's fascinating that I feel we need to do, given we have those mindsets that goes back generations, given we inherited the DNA of since generations ago, and we're carrying it, we still assume that we have to be safe and preserve ourselves. However, in this day and age, it is safe to be unsafe. We need to make ourselves, in fact, uncomfortable. I have young children, and they're comfortable. In fact, what we try and do nowadays is make them uncomfortable in an appropriate way. Go out and walk. You will run. You will cycle. You will use your muscles. All right? Thousands of years ago, you would preserve your muscles or your body, because if you went out there and ran, you usually had to run from some foreign marauders or animals. Nowadays, there's not hopefully much danger of that. So you have to actually get out and be uncomfortable, unsafe. And that would mean, then what do we do at ourselves given we're physically safe? We mentally try to reach an agreement and approval with everyone and therefore feel we are more comfortable. We actually have to get out there and be uncomfortable, uncertain, insecure. And it's fascinating enough, in a manner of speaking, that can also lead to creativity. A study I read as to cars being stolen. Okay? In the United States, they can be very creative as to coming up with solutions that will allow your car to be safe, be it the immobilizer, the alarm, they call it the car checking system. You have what's it called, the car form, the car tracker, right? In South Africa, as much as it's creativity, it's a bit of survival, that you got to keep your car safe, secure, because you very well could go out there and your car's not there. So it's very much a need to maintain the safety. Yes, but beyond that, we have to get a bit more unsafe, insecure, uncertain. We need to face up to more. We have to let go of the known. By letting go of the known, you address the unknown. In fact, it's very important not to label and define yourself by what you think you are, or what you know you are, or what you believe you are, but rather define yourself by what you don't know, what you have no clue exists. In fact, how I put it is we know what we know. But it's more important to address what we don't know that we don't know. So for example, how do you define what you don't know that you don't know? If we look back, say 50 odd years ago, and we all were transported back in time as we are, 50 odd years, and you end up with your grandparents when they were much younger, and you've got your pockets full as we do, and you ended up there and you kind of look like your granddad or grandmom. and you say to them, geez, I've come from 50 years ahead, so grandma, granddad, I've got to share with you something, and you empty out your pockets and you pull out that metal object that we all carry, be it plastic or whatever it is nowadays, and you say to them, with this, you can access the internet, you can keep an eye on all of us on Facebook, Uber, Airbnb, whatever it is. Would they believe you? They'd look at you weirdly. Geez, what's going on in 50 years ahead? Because they don't know that they don't know. And that is where the creativity comes in, that you have to address something more. But we need to view what we don't know that we don't know as abundance. What we know is absolutely scarce. What we know only leads to competition and comparison. What we don't know is creation. If we know it, you'll find that it actually becomes regulated and full of rules. What we don't know has no rules. So something interesting when you drive, okay? You and I know, be it anywhere in the world, if there's a stop sign with the word stop, you stop. If the traffic lights turn red, you stop. If it's green, you go. If it's amber, you slow down. Those are rules of the road. As much as you're traveling in another part of the world where the speed limit is 55 miles an hour, or in another country it's 120 k's an hour, you know exactly the rules of the road. Something interesting about the internet, at the moment there are some rules, but all the rules haven't yet been formulated. There are abundance of what you do, and it'll be interesting in a few years' time. I'm sure there'll be loads of rules. In fact, there'll probably be cyber police sitting somewhere. So there's an abundance of what you can do. In fact, we haven't yet completely tapped into full spectrum of what's on offer using the internet. Whereas in structured societies, in things we know, it has become completely rules-based and regulated. Because yes, we have to keep everyone safe. But in creativity, your mind can go places beyond what it knows. Your mind then follows rather than leads. Your mind becomes the servant to something more. You have to literally tap into something that's crazy, fantasy, imagination. And there, sometimes you say it and you realize, geez, where did this come from? Because it wasn't within your framework of knowledge. If it comes from what we know, it's not creative. It will probably be competitive. That means trying to be one step ahead of the competition and just a tweak on what you currently know. But to tap into something more, that's creativity. To tap into the abundance that exists beyond the paradigm of the mind, the perception of the mind. That's what creativity is. If we look at it, it's in fact one of the interesting things that chaos, in fact, is part of creativity. Because what we know, we endeavor to order, to structure. But beyond what we know is complete chaos. Some would argue anarchy. Because it doesn't currently exist within our framework of thinking. In fact, when someone generally discovers something new, it seems as weird, funny, stupid even. And then eventually, we actually get afraid that it might be harmful. And when it reaches some level of acceptance and popular acceptance, then we'll generally say, hey, I knew it all the time. But who knew that the biggest taxi company in the world will be one that doesn't own taxis? Or the biggest online grouping of so-called hotels, in inverted commas, be one that doesn't own any hotels. And what's fascinating about creativity is that we turn what is only available to a few to the masses, if I use that word. For example, with taxis, Uber, as much as it's available to the elite, now it's available to everyone on this earth. Someone got creative enough to say, wait a minute, it's not just for a few people that you should be able to access a car on your phone and it'll be there at a moment's notice. It must be for the masses. So all of us can do it. Once, 20, 30 odd years ago, it was just for the elite few. So what creativity involves is an element of discomfort. Not element, maybe massive discomfort with the status quo, with the ordinary way of living, with the average way of living, with the mundane way of living, with the mediocre way of living, and saying, wait a minute, I want to access the extraordinary. I want to make it exciting and energizing. And if we push or focus our energy in that direction, into the unknown, into the imagination and creation, it becomes fuel you're adding to a fire. What we generally do is add fuel into negative situations, and that becomes a fire. But to add fuel, energy to something so much more positive like creativity, we need to get excited and energized. And one of the things that steps us back from creativity, the most important thing I think, is fear. Why? You have to be different from the crowd. You have to step out of the crowd. What will others think? What will they say? How will they feel? We so want to be middle of the road, we refuse to step out there. But stepping out, very importantly, why don't we want to step out? Because we feel all eyes will be on us. The spotlight will be on us. But by stepping out, what does it entail is that you become who you truly are. You become an individual. You're being authentic to yourself. And as much as you're authentic and you've discovered some truth, recognize there's still more. There's far more to the truth to discover. So you need to then be truly who you are, and that's where creativity comes in. Because we are so numbed by the world we live in, we're so conditioned and accept the beliefs of the world that we don't recognize that there's something more to who we are. And in authenticity lies creativity. Because you actually have to be creative to actually be yourself. Because then you are not afraid to try and just fit in with everyone else. And no matter who I speak to, as patients or whoever I see, everyone has an element of being a square peg in a round hole, like a dolphin in a game park, or a lion trying to swim. We're just afraid to be truly who we are. And then you may argue, how do we discover who we truly are, given the creativity? And there's so much to us as individuals. You and I carry a genetic profiling. As much as you and I have features definitely in keeping with our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents, and thousands of generations before. All right, so that's at a physical level. We're also carrying mental attributes that are carried in our DNA. And one wonders from what generation before are we manifesting or expressing it at a deeper at a physical or a mental level. So I have two children and they have two different personalities, all right, even though they have the same parents. And what makes them different is that at some level genetically, they, as much as there's a physical difference, mentally as well, they have a different expression and manifestation. Emotionally, one will be different from the other. Now you take all that, what wants to manifest and express and create itself within you at this moment in time? What we'll do sometimes, as parents do it, is we endeavor to make them fit into a box that they don't fit into. And they'll endeavor to fit in because we all try to please the people around us. Because you notice it comes with reward sometimes, comes with affirmation, approval, accolades. So we try to fit in, but we're not being truly who we are. And if we get the approval, affirmation, acknowledgement, sometimes then we end up being something we're completely not what we are, because we're kind of doing a mediocre job and it pays and it makes us somewhat comfortable. But deep down there's this restlessness, this agitation, this frustration. Wait a minute, I want to be something different. But in being truly who you are, that manifestation of all those generations before you, those expressions that have worked and reached a level of adulthood and then is still expressed within you, is to take it a bit further. As much as you have that, then you have, yes, society as well. The nurture is important. You will find that in this day of internet, doesn't mean because your generations before that didn't have technology as we see it, information technology, yes, but you may find that there's a fit between your genetic manifestation and the technology that is present today. And you utilize it because all these things come together. And be it at a sporting level, I mean, not all of us are Usain Bolt. Okay, actually none of us are. All right? But wow, hats off to him that the man can run fast in terms of his genetics and, yes, the nurture that he trained. And it came together that there were rules and regulations that within those 100 meters, he was the fastest. All right? If the shortest distance was 500 meters, he might, I'm not too sure, have a problem. I'm sure he'll beat me anytime. But it'll be interesting what would happen. But fascinatingly, somehow someone decided 100 meters would be the benchmark as to the shortest distance to consider for a sprint. Now, when someone did the first 1 meter metric in France, they determined it. They didn't think of Usain Bolt running 100 meters of this and saying this is what it should be. But lo and behold, his expression of who he is manifested on 100 meters. And those are the rules and regulations. What's interesting though, one might argue that 20 years ago, how he runs and manifests or expresses himself might have been seen as inappropriate to winning the 100 meters. It's fascinating to see the number of steps when now they break it down, that he does it far better than anyone else. He is creating within the set of rules and regulations. Watching a good footballer is like an artist playing on the field. That is creativity because they have the rules and regulations and they express themselves at a far more higher level than most of us can on that field. They are bringing something more to the table. Not all of us are going to be fortunate enough to be able to run the 100 meters or play the football field within those set of rules and regulations. What you and I need to do is actually be true to who we are and find the field, find the work, find the job that fits. What we generally do is we find work and we try to fit in. We need to find who we are and determine the work that fits into who we are. Find the job that fits into who we are.
Find yourself, then find the job.
Find who you are. Yes, it won't happen that you may spend 10, 20, we all spend our lifetimes finding out who we are. But as you're finding who you are, you find where that fits into, rather than finding something, and therefore we all try to fit in. And that leads to the mediocrity. That leads to the ordinariness. Be true to who we are, and you need to take that step because it definitely is an element of fear, because we don't want to step out. But people who have made, again, I'll use this word difference, to our lives in a positive way, have been people who've been prepared to step out and be true to who they are.